Good evening, everybody. This is Robin with another edition of Horror Pop After Midnight. And my guest tonight he's a filmmaker, an actor, a writer, Derek Ting. How's it going, Derek?
I'm awesome. Great to speak to you and see and talk to you.
Yeah, I just got done watching your action sci-fi film, Agent Recon, where you play soldier Jim Young. So can you tell me a little bit about your character, Jim Young, and also the origin of the whole Agent saga?
Sure. Jim's just this regular guy who wanted to join the CIA and he couldn't get in. He's had headaches and he goes out to the desert with his friends and he starts. They're shooting these weapons. They're on a weapons training course and something happens and suddenly they're in this mess and he acquires these superpowers through a substance called the ash. And that started with the very first one where we learned that this ash is actually an alien substance. And as he progresses, he's introduced to this world of this conspiracy and a secret organization who's tasked to stop aliens from taking over the world. So, he's brought to that organization in Age of Revelation, which is the second part of this saga. And here we are with Agent Recon releasing, which is, I will tell you, is a self-contained movie that you can totally watch. Think of like when you watched the movie Aliens by Jim Cameron. You did not need to watch Alien, the previous one, to know what's going on. And this movie, Agent Recon, is about Jim going on a mission with Marc and commanded by Chuck Norris himself. And we're sent on a mission to this base because they have discovered this mysterious energy and they want to find out what happens. And they encounter this being and suddenly everything goes haywire and they have to fight their way out of the base.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. How'd you bring on Chuck Norris into your film? He was my childhood hero growing up.
He was everybody's childhood hero, wasn't he? Chuck, I don't I was searching for the role of Alistair, and I was thinking about I want a legit action hero to be in this movie. I think for action movies, what really sells it for me is when the actor can do the actual action. Of course, Chuck Norris is the top of that. So, I had no connections to him. I'd never met him or his family, but my awesome casting director went out to him, and then they loved the script. And so next thing I know, I'm talking to them and getting to know them, and I had the opportunity to make a movie with them. So it's really just on the script and the story that led him to want to be a part of it. And in fact, they've said that after Chuck read the script, he said we have to do this movie. So.
And the cool thing about Chuck, he plays Alistair. He plays an AI soldier, and the thing I like about it, he did that role pretty good because when you watch him in the film, I don't know if I'm really watching Chuck Norris or if it's an artificial intelligence, like a duplicate of Chuck Norris in the film. You can't tell if it's really him or really not because he nailed that role to the T.
Oh yeah, I think the thing is that that's one of the things that he actually felt like he had never done a role like that, and that's why I think that's also another reason why he wanted to do the movie. And they prepared. And they even talked about it. They said because he knows all the greats. He knows Schwarzenegger and Stallone. So he was talking about, I want to do, he was thinking about the Terminator and what Arnold did with that and how he could bring something to it. And the role was really adapted to him being able to do, action. And so, yeah, it was really, I think he did just an amazing job really selling that role. And it's something very different from what we've seen. So,
Yeah, to me, it's a different role because I've seen all of his films, and he puts like a unique spin in this role as an artificial intelligence. And also, you brought his son in, Dakota Norris, who worked with his dad on his fight choreography in the film.
Yeah, well, and Dakota is amazing. He's very young, but he's been working with his dad for quite some time now, and knows him very well. Knows what he's capable of. Obviously, knows all his movies, and and they're very close. They're a very close knit family. What essentially happened was and this is what I love about them is that they love their fans, and so when we first talked, they said, well, Dakota actually pitched me saying that he put together a fight sequence for his father that he'd love to put in the movie. And I'm like, hell yeah, sure. I mean, like, why wouldn't I, of course, I didn't know him very well, and we'd never met, but I guess we just really hit it off and clicked. And so he's like, well, and he was really nice about it. He was like, is it okay if I send you some previs that I did? And this was prior to the call, and I'm like, sure, why not? And of course, my stunt coordinator was like, yeah, I guess so. Joe's pretty tough. He's very steely about like how he responds. He's like, yeah, okay, sure. Because stunt guys they're like in the military. So, Dakota sent this over, and it was like, I was like, oh yeah, this is actually really good. Like we have him like throwing people, punching people, knocking them out, and everything. So. I think it was up to me really to facilitate that action, because ultimately, one, Dakota is quite talented in many respects as a person. He's just great at communicating and working together. But he knows martial arts very well, even as in himself, and he knows his father very well. So. It is really just up to me to facilitate and make sure it looks as good as possible. And I personally think we delivered.
Oh, you guys did. Let's talk about your role in the film. You delivered pretty well in some of the martial arts choreography as well in some of your scenes, and they were pretty solid shots. So when you wrote this movie and filmed it, how far did you pull the boundaries with the action and the uniqueness when you were filming this film, Agent Recon?
Well, I certainly have a style of action that I want to show, and that one is that it's very clear, that you can follow along and see what's going on. And I understand it in some regards. It does, like if you have a shaky camera, which you see in some other action movies, it does add some kinetic energy, but there's a certain point where you just lose the audience, and then they don't even know what's going on. And so then why even put the action in there? So certainly that's my style, and sometimes I slow things down, sometimes I speed things up. But ultimately I'm telling a story within that action. And so of course you'll see me do a lot of the action.
Yes.
Because I think that's important. Just whatever I can, of course, too. There's also like the danger, since I'm like wearing multiple roles, like I just don't want to get injured, because I get injured, just everything stops. So you're busting your bum, and you're trying your best, but you definitely don't want to get injured, because that would just derail everything. But adding the danger in the fights is also something I really want to display, and that this character is not very crisp about what he's doing either, as if you were scared and terrified. You're just fighting for your life, and that's a lot of what this guy's doing. He's just fighting for his life.
Yeah, it's pretty good. And also, let's talk about another actor you brought in. I loved him as well as a kid. You know him from like V, The Beastmaster, and another film he played, If You Could See What I Hear, a classic where he played a blind musician. In this movie, Marc Singer plays Colonel Green. So how did he become part of this project? And he was pretty good in this role. And then also in the film, I love how he did the V reference. Lizards, disguised under human skin. I so geeked out.
I'm glad you picked up on that. I'm glad you thought, and we had to put something in there, right? I was joking with Mark about, the one laser gun that the rebels had in V.
Yeah.
It would make this noise, like,
yeah,
right? So a couple times I'm like, hey, Mark, I think you're gonna fire over there. And then he just kind of look at me and be like, right. It's kind of like, so I was teasing him too. Cause V was one of my favorite TV shows. I look forward to that. That was like the biggest budgeted TV show ever. In fact, they couldn't go any more seasons cause it was so expensive. Amazing. The guy actually who created it, he did Alien Nation, that's an amazing show. He did Wonder Woman. He's pretty much like the Kevin Feige of the 80s, but people just didn't know. And then for Mark to really lead that, Mark truly is a quality A-list actor. All there is to it. Beastmaster was, I don't know, it's a $9 million budget, but it's still considered a B movie. He elevated the Beastmaster. That's one of the movies that I've watched so many times. And, when you're looking for something to watch back then, I was totally willing to watch that again and again and again, just because there's just so much there. So much to the fact that I almost asked my parents for a pair of pet ferrets, but that got shot down very quickly. So
that's pretty wild. Yeah, he plays a tough colonel in the movie. Also, in the story, he's trying to find his daughter, which is played by Nikki Lee. Who is held captive, by these aliens on this like secret base in New Mexico. And I love how he had that chemistry with Nikki. There were some scenes they weren't together, but you can just feel that connection between them when they started, talking with each other, and you can feel that father and daughter bond in that intimate relationship between him. She's like, it's like, oh, don't come after me. Do what you need to do, Dad. And the dad's like, oh, I got to come after you. I just like how you wrote those two characters for both of them. It just connected well.
Yeah, I don't want to spoil it for people.
No, don't spoil it. Don't spoil it. Yeah.
Arc. He has an amazing arc in this film, and I think you really see the thespian that he is. The things that he's doing. He had so many good ideas too. That's how he was elevated, and he was even giving me amazing tips along the way how I can make my character more interesting, and they really stuck with me. Of course, that's why he was the Beastmaster, right? Like, why was the Beastmaster so good? Because, he told me a story about that, but that'll be for another episode, I guess. But that type of wisdom was passed on to me, and I took it and I held on to it and I put it in a very safe place, and I'm never giving that to anybody else. No. What an amazing guy. And their relationship is the crux. We want to entertain people. I think action movies are something people gravitate towards, that they want to see. I'm an action movie buff. But how do you tell a compelling story and relationships and the decisions that his character makes? And you see that, and I hope people will watch this and then maybe watch it back and see the decisions that his character is making.
He made a lot
along the way. Really just amazing work, and not spoiling anything.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't be that guy, and I'm not going to be that guy. I just want to have a fun interview. Now let's go to the visual effects. I love visual effects in the movie. Tell me who did your visual effects, and I love those energy blasts between you and the main alien. It felt like, I was watching a live action Dragon Ball tournament between you and the alien shooting those energy blasts. And then also, I love the red ash you see through the camera where the alien is, looking at the soldiers through all that redness. I love how you added that into the film where you felt like you're looking right through the alien's eyes while he was staring at the military task force.
Oh, wow. Well, there's a combination of three teams. One's based in LA. So a lot of the energy effects were done by them because I wanted them to look really good. And energy effects they're not easy to do. And then there's a friend of mine that I've worked with on several movies in terms of like the overlays and displays. He's like head of a media outlet, and let's just say like this, he's really good at that stuff, and we worked together many times. I put together the initial draft, and then he obviously elevated it. And that's kind of like my wink to Predator, of course. I don't want to spoil it either. I mean, you see a little bit of it in the trailer, and that was done by the guys in LA, and a couple, like a big team in Bulgaria as well. So it's really varied. And certainly actually a shout out to my friend Ben. He did all the like gunshots and blood, and I think he did a great job. We used John Wick as the benchmark. So we analyzed. Really, I think that it's tricky. It's really tricky, and there's a lot of tools out there. But we were thinking about like what really makes it realistic. So one of the things we were talking about that I felt like needed it was like a lot of times the smoke really does add value to the realism in the gun effects. So things like that, and what the muzzle flash would look like, and making it big but not too big. So if you look, like for example, if you watch Heat, for example, those are huge muzzle flashes. But for some reason, that's what I felt like actually made it look really, really realistic, because there was actual smoke coming from these guns, and then they added some effects, but that's probably the most realistic for gunfire. So several teams.
And also, when you wrote and made the film, was there some certain scenes that you really wanted to put in the film, but you couldn't, but you had to cut it out, that would have added that extra, topping to the film?
Oh man, there's so much that I cut and rearranged. There's a lot of dialogue that I had to cut because I was just not working. There's stuff in there that I wanted to put in. Like Marc wanted to fall out of the chair because he's trapped, right?
Yeah,
he's trapped. He gets trapped. I don't think that's too much of a spoiler.
It's not. He's trapped. I mean, you can see that in any movie, but yeah.
But he wanted to fall like on the ground out of the chair, and I was like, is that a good idea? Because people have to remember he's like in his 70s. Is that a good? But he was like, Derek, I want to fall out of the chair. Unfortunately, that did not make it into the movie. Maybe we'll do some behind the scenes of stuff that didn't make it. But there's a lot of stuff that I think really reads well on paper, but did not translate well for me in terms of dialogue. But that evolves when you're there and you're in the moment, and I'm filming, and I'm like, okay, I could record some of this dialogue, and some of the stuff I do record. But then when you're hearing it back and you're seeing it all, and the set is there and all the actors are there, it is like, oh, this is not necessarily working. We'll take it, but then we're going to move on because I feel like this part could be better in this way. So, yeah.
I also liked the cinematography aerial shots you did. You did some beautiful shots with the aerial with the camera operators and the cinematography of the area where you were heading into New Mexico. I loved some of the camera shots and some of the angle shots in certain scenes of the film. I'm a big fan of cinematography, so there were some good shots.
Oh, thanks. I mean, Logan was the aerial, Light Proof Media on Instagram, and he did a lot of the aerial shots. I think we had an amazing background. Like this set is a very expensive set. It's a very expensive set. It's like a very beautiful area. It's why a lot of big studios, small indie budgets don't normally film there, but I was able to get help and film there. But the beautiful nature of it. I was some like scouting when I was scouting there. I was like, oh man, this place is amazing. I'm so excited. I just got really excited. But one of the stories I tell is that when I went there, it was all desert, and then it rained in California, so it was just all green and lush, which made it so beautiful during some of the fights. I was like, you can't beat this. This is gonna look awesome. And then try to time it during some of the stuff during the sunset, so we get like awesome light and everything. But I was very fortunate. Even the rain, which never happens in California, really added to the mood and making it feel cinematic. But hats off to my DP who forced me to get expensive RE cameras and have every toy in the toy chest. He had everything, so.
I was also satisfied with the ending. It kind of had a little emotion to it, but I love how it still ended. And is there going to be a sequel to this? How it ended?
Oh yeah. I think there's just so much to explore in this world, and it's a fun world. And I think the character of Jim we can learn much more about, but I think we currently know enough. And I'd love to go to different places. So yeah, I mean, a lot of that needs to be explored, wants to be explored, and a lot of it has been written. So, and we've been very fortunate. Yeah, there's been some, it started out very small, and it's gained traction, it's gained fans, it's gained a lot of support, and, I got a good feeling, but I don't want to, I've just wanted to make the best movie possible. So, and I think people can just go out and watch this and have a good time. Watch some Chuck Norris and Marc Singer, and enjoy some Easter eggs, which I dropped in there for sure because I'm a fan.
And hey, also enjoying you. I mean, you did some great, like I said earlier in the podcast, you did some great fight scenes as well, so people will be enjoying your character, because to explore a little bit more to find out, the history of, Jim Young. I mean, you got my attention, and I'm looking forward to see how far he goes to his, next adventure to really find out who he really is and what's going to happen. And I just love that. I love those type of cliffhanger endings in film because it was kind of like a little cliffhanger to me. That's how I picked it off. But yeah, I can't wait to see what Jim Young does next. So. And
yeah, because people live on, right? People live on, and they finish the mission, and a lot of these characters, they have their arcs and they change, but there's just more to them. There's just more to them, and there's actually, in fact, I feel like we have a lot of great characters that can do. Like, I'd love to know their story too. So, and that's the exciting part about about creating this is just there's just so many possibilities, and it's something new, and it's an opportunity to be creative. And by the way, people, if you watch this, when you watch this, open to ideas too. Open to ideas of where it could go. Tell me who your favorite character is, and show me that it that's important. So, because I listen. I think that's the important thing is I listen every time I make a movie.
I'll tell you this: one of the characters in the film I would love to see go further in the the agent universe. I like to see where the captain, Lila, played by Nikki Lee. I like to see how she all started, getting in the military, and I like to see where she goes from here towards the end of the movie too. I like to see a little bit more of her too.
Yeah, she's a great actress. Nikki's a great actress. We were just chatting back and forth, and I was talking about talking to her about what she did, her performance, and she's great in it. She's great as Marc Singer's daughter. She's great in it, and there were certain parts where I thought it should be one way, and then I was trying to get that performance out of it as a director, knowing that I already had a good take, right? I know you want to make sure you have a good take. I never move on unless I have a good take. But then in retrospect, I was like, okay, that's the take that I like, and that's not the take that I expected. That's not the take that I envisioned in my head. But that's the best one, and that's the right one for the character. And I think that speaks to who she is and the potential of where she can go as an actress as well. So, yeah, I'd love to see that too.
I did too, because I liked her in the film. When you're not like writing and filming, what's your passion? Do you have like the type of passion you like to do when you're not filming and acting that you really enjoy in life?
I love health and fitness. I certainly I was just doing pull-ups before. I like to work on my pull-ups. It's something I'm like interested. It's weird. Sometimes I don't like it, but I'm like, if I don't do this, then I won't improve, and I'm always want to improve the number of pull-ups I can do. But health and fitness is something I'm more interested in, and my perspective on that too is leading a healthy lifestyle, but also leading a lifestyle where I can enjoy myself. Like, I love food. I love eating. So that's another passion is like, I love eating. I just had 6 slices of pizza last night too. And I'm like, that makes me happy too. So, it's just a balance of both. I'm definitely like, how many other passions? I like to build Lego with my son. He's 6.5 too. Like, we have every set. I think we're just running out of space right now, but that might be typical parenting for others too. Cause I don't know. But yeah, if it's not stuff like that, it's spending time with friends and family.
Awesome. One more question. Do you like horror films?
Yeah. I won't answer that question, but when you watch Agent Recon, I mean, there's definitely a lot of elements of that. And even the first one, Agent Intelligence, which is it's a simple one, but it really has a lot of elements of horror in it. So, and I grew up on horror films with my dad loves horror films. Like, he just you just continue watching horror film after horror film on we would rent VHS tapes or even beta. I'm dating myself, but yeah. But for me, I guess, like, I have so many other interests as well, but like a good horror film is always, it depends on if the story is there. Like Aliens, for example, is Alien and Aliens. It's a sci-fi horror film as well, but it has action, right? So it's just like, yeah. Yes, but at the end, it has to have a good story and stuff like that. So, and some are done really well. Some of them really, like, some of them are just so scary. I want to watch it, but then I know that I'll have nightmares afterwards. So I have this kind of like thing where I'll watch some horror to a degree, and there's some that maybe I'd be interested in watching, but if I watch that one, I know that like the imprint in my mind would just, it would bother me for a while. Like even as a kid, like, have you ever watched Pee-wee's Big Adventure?
Yes.
Watch that movie?
Yes.
It's like, that's not a kid's movie, kids. That's not a kid's movie. I mean, when the truck driver,
Large Marge?
Like, looks at Large Marge. Oh my God, I still have that picture in my head. Like, that's a weird and wacky film. I don't know why I brought this up with you, but it's just like, horror movies, they're always looking for that gag to get you, right? Just to scare the bejesus out of you. And so that maybe that part is like, I get it, but then I know myself that like, then I have a hard time sleeping at night. So I just don't. So there's your very long answer, which we talked about at the beginning when we were first starting this up, is that yes, but to a degree. And most movies, like, there's elements of horror everywhere.
I think so in every film, because I'm like you. Horror's my love, but I also like action and sci-fi too. Those are like my top three. And then one last question. Since this movie has a little horror element in aliens, so how much research did you do about aliens, and do you believe in aliens?
Oh, do I believe in aliens? Well, I don't. Wow. We could. I mean, that's such a rabbit hole.
Yeah,
that's such a rabbit hole. But I did tons of research. Anunnaki is one of the things that, if people know that, I call the aliens Keenians, but Anunnaki is actually something you could search in Google. The Dulce base is something you could search in Google and find on YouTube and read about it. And so there's like the elements of those things, and I did that type. That's the type of research I did for that aspect of it. And are aliens? I don't think we can rule them out. I don't think we can rule them out for sure that they don't exist. I just think that they, what we think, the image of what we think aliens might be, or might be completely different than what it actually ends up being. But logically, it'd be very hard to rule it out to say no.
I think so too.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that'd be funny if you asked Marc Singer that question. I wonder how he would answer that.
Oh man. If you thought my answer was long, let's see what happens. If you end up you might end up talking to Marc Singer. I don't know. I would be curious, because he's a thinker. He's such a thinker. He's a very smart guy and athletic.
Oh, definitely.
Very smart and athletic guy. Yeah, I'd be curious what his answer is.
I think so too. So where can everybody find you on social media to see what you're doing next, and also check out Agent Recon, and then what are your other next projects?
DK Ting, Agent the Movie on Instagram, and then there's Agent the Film and Derek Ting FP on Facebook. I'm on YouTube. It's Derek Ting. You can find me there. That's where a lot of the full behind the scenes will be, and we'll be releasing those the day of June 21. I'm releasing some of them, but they're just some that have spoilers, and I just don't want people to see everything beforehand. What am I working on next? The script is mostly written already. Okay. I'll just say. I've already written the sequel to Agent Recon.
Yes.
And then I'm writing another franchise right now. So I hope people watch it. I hope they watch it on Amazon is the big thing. But there's plenty of other platforms to watch it on. We do have some theaters. There aren't that many theaters in that if enough people go and watch and buy tickets to those, which I think it's worth it because this movie has been mixed for a theater, and we shot on the best camera, so visually, with all the visual effects, it will play very well with your friends, your best bud, or even your family, who's maybe your kid maybe 10, 11 years old. And if it does well, then it will expand into other markets, and we'll have more theaters. So, but yeah, digital demand, on demand, and some theaters. And just find it and go watch it and tell me what you think. If you're a nice person.
Yeah, I definitely want to get a physical copy of it. I definitely want to get on Blu-ray because I'm a strong supporter of physical media.
Yeah. Actually, a lot of fans have asked me for if we're going to do that. It's in the hands of a distributor. Mm-hmm. Millennium's doing it internationally, and Quiver, who's been doing a lot of creator-led films, they're doing it. I don't. The answer is to everyone is I don't know, but if enough people ask for it, then I don't see why not. We're selling posters though. We have posters available if and some merch on our agentsaga.xyz website. Definitely, if I see you and you have a poster in your hand, I will sign it. And I know that Chuck goes to conventions.
Actually,
Marc, so.
Yeah, actually he does, because I met Chuck once at Lexington Comic Con, and then he's coming to where I'm at outside of Cincinnati in October to the Cincinnati Comic Expo. Chuck Norris will be there, so I better get myself a poster, get him to sign it, and I'm gonna ask some questions about Agent Recon and working with you too when I see him for a second time over at Cincinnati Comic Expo in October.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, I know he does 2 or 3 a year. So, and they go to those, and really they just hang out and so I guess I'm very blessed that they did a movie with me, and I'm super grateful. And we should really celebrate him and his magnificent career and all the good work he's done with his charity and all that. I think they're just an amazing family. So, go see it. Agent Recon.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I'm going to watch it for a second time. But like I said, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story, and also, talking about Agent Recon.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate, watching it and just, as long as you enjoyed it, and that's what it's all about.
I totally agree with you, because I'm a strong supporter of indie filmmakers, and of course indie horror filmmakers as well. I like to support that, because if it wasn't for you guys put your heart and soul into these films and can do more than a bigger studio, which I really enjoy, because there's so many great stories through indie film. That's just my opinion. So
yeah, I mean, that's certainly one of the ways I've tried to craft my career, is have as much control as possible. Mm-hmm. So I'm in a unique position right now, because I'm certainly working with some execs, but I have a lot more control than if I were let's say working at a very big studio. So I can really influence the stories that I want to do, and I have the opportunity to put something out very original and pull in the action heroes that I really love too.
All right, like I said, thank you so much, and everybody, thank you for listening to Horror Pop After Midnight. Have a